The following episode contains strong language and descriptions of violence. Please take care when listening. Hi there, Higgy?
Yes.
How are you? It's Michelle out of Toronto.
How are you, Michelle?
I'm good. I just looked up your area code. This is Higgy. He told me I could call him that. More properly, though.
My name is Thomas Higginbotham, and I was a trooper from 1978 to 2009. I retired in December of 2009. I retired as a sergeant.
Higgy, if you can't tell from his accent, is from Massachusetts. In his decades-long career, Higgy worked in Boston and the surrounding area.
Ever since I came on in 1978, I seized a lot of stolen motorcycles from various gang members. And I was able to develop information, develop informants, and I always had an influence.
For a long time, Higgy's Massachusetts was a Hells Angels state. Then, in the early 1990s, their arch rival, a biker gang named the Outlaws, started to inch into the region by absorbing smaller local clubs.
They finally did manage to patch over a club. It was the Nomads and some Devil's Disciples. They patched over a small group in Brockton, and they opened up their first clubhouse in Massachusetts. I believe it was 1993. So they were here. Everybody was quite concerned about them, and where I was assigned to the city of Brockton.
By 2005, Higgy and his team started an investigation into the Taunton, Massachusetts chapter of the Outlaws. Eventually, it would draw in police from the local, state, and federal level. It was called Operation Roadkill.
We tossed it around about the possibility of putting an undercover in, and we kind of agreed that, we could try it to see how far the investigation would go. I'm not a big fan of it, but I said, yeah.
And why is it that you normally don't like to have an undercover?
What happens when we bring an undercover into a motorcycle gang, it raises all these other issues. We have to deal with his safety. We have to worry about him getting killed or getting assaulted. We have to protect him because he's hanging around with outlaws, right? And they're arch rivals with the Hells Angels, and there's violence. So he becomes a target by his association with them. He was riding with them. He's going to events with them all over the country. He's at their clubhouses, going to parties. This is just me talking, okay? His safety becomes number one. We got to keep him alive and keep him going. And they control his life. If we let him become a club member and he wears colors, they control his life and they control his every movement. We lose complete control of the investigation and the undercover. You know what I'm saying?
But for Scott, this was a dream assignment.
I had this I want to say crush, but this thing about being an undercover biker because, I was a biker, I rode. I can show you a picture of all the guys, or most of the guys in my narcotics squad at the sheriff's office. And if I showed you that picture of us at Bike Week, you'd think we were all like 1%ers. And I'm comfortable in that environment. I bounced in strip clubs, and even when I wasn't bouncing, I would go back and visit as a single young cop. I'd go back and hang out with all my buddies. So, that's just my mentality. It's my skill set, right? You're not going to take me and put me in a vegan or an eco. Yeah, I'm not going to infiltrate Elf or Alf, probably. They can smell the beef on me,
But just because Scott rode a Harley and could wear a leather vest unironically, didn't mean it would be easy to infiltrate one of the most violent, cop-hating organizations in the world. And surviving it would be even harder. I'm Michelle Shephard, and from CBC, this is Agent Palehorse, Episode 3, who'sarat.com. Around the world, there are what's traditionally called the Big Four motorcycle gangs. The Bandidos, the Pagans, the Hells Angels, and the Outlaws. And even if you've never watched an episode of Sons of Anarchy, you'll know that they all have their rivalries and turf wars.
Now, as biker gangs continue to use street justice in their territorial battles, police say their biggest concern is innocent bystanders getting caught in the crossfire.
It's about turf. It's about being the biggest, baddest guy on the block. And when somebody moves into your neighborhood, it's disrespect to you and that patch you're wearing. So you have to take care of business.
It was an ordinary weekend lunch turned deadly gang shootout, a battle over biker turf littering a parking lot with bodies.
When I started as a police officer, most of the club members that I encountered, they were Vietnam vets, just as they were when they started after World War II, the Hells Angels. They were basically combat veterans, a lot of them. And a lot of them don't have much love for the government, you know. They don't operate within the laws that most of the rest of us do. They're territorial. They take what they want by force. They claim areas like their patches, like Massachusetts. The Outlaws wore a bottom rock in Massachusetts. Well, the Angels always did that, so that's an instant war with these people, you know.
Here's a quick primer on patches. That's what you see on the back of a biker's leather vest or jacket as they ride in front of you on the highway. The words above the insignia are the name of the club, the top rocker. The bottom rocker indicates their turf. So if you're a Hells Angel and you see an outlaw wearing a patch with the same bottom rocker, well, that's a provocation. And if you're just a regular civilian seeing a cluster of patches in your neighborhood, well, that can be scary.
They have ties to organized crime, racist, white supremacists. They have all of that in their clubs. And I always had an interest in them. It was kind of weird, but...
Why is that you had the interest?
Well, I actually, to be honest, when I was young, I actually had a Harley and I rode, and all they did was steal everybody's bikes. They were notorious motorcycle thieves. But I've found, like the ones that I've got to know, there's something in their lives that brings them to that. They're looking for, like, there's something that they're missing. It's like a brotherhood. You know what I mean? Or camaraderie. It's just, it's an odd culture in a way, but it is a violent way to live, though.
Right. Higgy and his team had been investigating the Taunton Outlaws Club members for more than a year before Scott was brought onto the case.
I was a federal prosecutor in Boston, otherwise known as an assistant U.S. attorney.
Peter Levitt was the state's main lawyer on Operation Roadkill.
I was the chief of the organized crime and gang unit, and we focused on everything from transnational criminal organizations to local street gangs that, negatively impacted particular communities. The Crips, the Bloods, the Latin Gangsta Disciples, a variety of street gangs that had varying levels of organization, and our focus was on the gangs that typically were engaged in the most violent conduct.
The Outlaws fit the bill, so investigators could throw a lot at the operation.
The tools that a federal prosecutor has in the United States are quite broad, and in that investigation we used all of them. There are confidential informants, there are cooperating witnesses, there are wiretaps, searches and seizures, poll cameras, trash polls. You have a variety of investigative techniques that you can employ to gather both intelligence and evidence.
Trash covers and poll? What?
Yeah.
A couple of tactics I haven't heard of before.
A trash pull, it just simply means that when somebody puts their trash out on the sidewalk, they lose their expectation of privacy under the Fourth Amendment. And so one of the sort of investigative techniques is simply to search trash. It's not really to gather evidence, it's more to gather intelligence.
After a year of this, the FBI began a wiretap on the cell phone of the chapter's president, a man named Joseph No, a.k.a. Joe Dogs. While bugged, No was caught trafficking cocaine, and he was also supplying to other club members.
So basically, we had done our wire, we'd made an arrest, and we had some of the members done for a narcotics violation.
Okay, they're engaged in drug trafficking, they're engaged in violence, they carry illegal firearms.
When they decided that they were going to bring in an undercover, then we picked out a target that we thought was a weak link in the club. I don't know if he told you this.
Spanky.
Spanky. They said, man, this dude loves attention.
Scott, you can tell he's a tough guy. He's a big guy. He's got that southern drawl. He's a bullshit artist. He's perfect. And he's a schmoozer, and he's got that big voice, and that's the kind of people Spanky likes. A big dude, you know, he probably could harm some people, beat people up. He had money, so he could buy Spanky drinks at the strip club.
They said, man, this dude, he loves to be the center of attention. He loves to be surrounded by big guys. You know, that's my guy. That's my guy. Big muscle guys, right?
The team picked a strip club named Foxy Lady as the place where Scott would make his first contact. The Outlaws were known to hang out there. But weeks before any potential meet-cute, Scott spent time around the club, making sure he became a familiar face.
So I went there a couple of times by myself. I guess the cover team was outside, but I wasn't really undercover. I'd go in and I'd get, I'd grab me a drink. I'd go sit down at a table. Well, then somebody's going to come by. I went during the day shift, where the reputable dancers work, because it's 8 to 5.
Where all the business guys are there.
No, it's the lunch. It's the
lunch crowd.
It's the manual labor lunch crowd. Yeah, you go in there and get your car washed and all that stuff.
I don't even know what that means, but
no, they do it. They did it all over the place. It'd be like, hey, a drive-through car wash, and it's strippers, and you literally sit in your car and they're washing your car.
What? Like, you mean it's actual car wash?
Yep. I mean it. And I never understood it. I'm like, okay, so you're in a car with a bunch of dudes and you're driving through, and half-naked women are rubbing their parts and with soap all over the windows, and you're in the car. Okay.
Oh, God. Anyway, point is, Scott doesn't want the first time he's at the Foxy Lady to be the first time the Outlaws see him there. It would look suspicious.
What I'm doing is I'm building my bona fides. I am creating a legend here to where I'm getting to know people, they're getting to know me. So what I did is as I got a couple of drinks, I go sit down and somebody comes by and they go, hey, you want some company? Yeah, sure. Well, then I don't want to say it's all about greed, but basically if it was a $20 dance, I'd pay $40. Next thing you know, you've got more people at your table.
As Scott does his thing, Higgy and his team keep watching the Outlaws. After a week or so, it's time for the setup. Scott's cover team lets him know the Outlaws have left their clubhouse and are making their way to their favorite strip joint.
They take the back bar. You see this sea of black leather. And one thing was that they did say, at least the way I remember it, is they told me that they couldn't wear their colors, their cuts, their outlaw leather vests. And a lot of clubs do that. They go, hey, man, all bikers welcome, no colors, because all it does is start problems. So I thought, hey, man, this will be pretty straightforward. I'm a guy from out of town who likes to ride and has tattoos, and I'm sitting here watching half-naked women dance, and I love rock and roll, and here we are, and you're the same thing. We're just from different parts. But when they came in and they had their colors on, well, that changed my approach. So now I'm like, well, I can't just walk over there into a sea of testosterone and leather and say, hey, you guys ride?
It's pretty clear who they are now, yeah.
I know, right? Let me ask you boys something. Y'all like to ride? Get out of here.
He happened to start throwing some money around, having a few drinks, and guess who latched onto him? Spanky. It was like...
It's like you couldn't script it better.
No, you couldn't. But see, that's the advantage of having the intelligence.
It doesn't take long. I could see that Spanky was looking, and I'm like, okay, it's kind of going good. And eventually he yells across the bar to me, and like, hey, and I don't hear, hey. And I was like, so I look over, like, yeah, me? And he's like, yeah, hey, how effing tall are you? And I made some stupid joke, some smart aleck thing back, and then, he's like, that's hilarious. Where the F are you from? So I told him, I'm in deep South Texas, and he's like, hey, man, he goes, don't they have some bad storms and flooding going on down there? And then I made a joke about tying my trailer off to my truck and my motorcycle so it wouldn't float away, kind of thing. It's almost like dating, right? I'm playing hard to get.
The date goes well. Scott, a.k.a. Tex, a.k.a. Big Country, is in. Or he has his foot in the door, at least. But that door could shut any day. Prosecutor Peter Levitt again.
They're a very insular organization. They don't deal with outsiders. And in Taunton, in particular, was a lot of violence and drug trafficking stemming from that clubhouse. So the first step is, can he make connections with the group? All right. You know, you can't just walk in and say, hey, I want to be a member of the Outlaws.
Right.
So you've got to hang out where they hang out and sort of let them come to you, in a sense. It's kind of like a seduction.
Scott has introduced himself as a semi-legitimate businessman and a site surveyor from Texas. If we're staying with the dating metaphor, then this seduction is slow. He's playing the long game, and he's starting to gather more intel, getting to know all the members. Let's start with Spanky.
He was hot and heavy in that first 6 months, and then he went on they said a mental leave sabbatical, and I didn't see him for a long time. The first 6 months, they were talking about creating a Outlaws chapter in Cape Cod, and there was already a Hells Angels chapter there, and they knew that if they set up a chapter, they needed muscle, and Spanky was grooming himself to be I guess, the president of that chapter. But he was always offering up stuff. You know, he'd be like we're talking right now, he's in the corner and he's going, hey, did you guys know about it? And nobody answered him. He goes, whatever, I'm talking, nobody's listening, whatever. So that's what, he did it all the time. So I pick up on quirks like that.
He was like the Eeyore of the, the Outlaws.
He'd be trying to interject something, and if nobody paid attention to him, he'd be like, whatever, I'm talking, nobody's listening.
Then there was Clothesline.
So Clothesline, his name was Brian De La Vega, by the way. He usually kept a short cropped haircut. He had sideburns tattooed on his face. Not solid, it was more like a design, but where sideburns would be. And of course tatted everywhere else.
On his neck, he had the tattoo, Live Free or Die. Clothesline was the chapter's enforcer, the muscle. Clothesline,
very unpredictable. You know, he had one of the best lines that I'd heard. He said he was allergic to Jack Daniels. Because I was like, hey, you want a Jack and Coke? Because he just got out of jail or something. And I said, hey, you want a Jack and Coke? He's, no, I'm allergic to Jack Daniels. Every time I drink it, I break out in cuffs. Apparently, it makes him do stupid stuff and he ends up in jail. So I laughed. I was like, that's funny, man.
Then there's the chapter president, Joe Dogs, the one whose phone the authorities had previously tapped.
Joe Dogs, we got along pretty good. I guess character-wise, he liked to party. I'll tell you what, he used to drive me crazy because he was a terrible businessman. And atrocious. If you're a drug dealer, usually you're not. Most of the times they're not great business people.
A couple months after Scott first infiltrates, he sees that Joe Dogs isn't a great people person either. It starts, predictably, at the Foxy Lady with a fight.
As I'm getting closer to the exit door, I'm hearing all this yelling and screaming getting louder and louder. And I walk out, and man, they're fighting this guy, and he's got 4 or 5 friends with him.
Fight fucking pussy! Fight pussy!
If you listen to the recording, he's I partake in the fight, but I'm articulating. I'm doing it to a point where I can articulate that I'm actually helping somebody. I'm not punching somebody. I'm picking them up and throwing them back to the truck. Hey, back the F up, back the F up.
Hey, that's enough. It's time to go. Come on. Hey. Why are you swinging? What the fuck are you swinging for? I'm not swinging. Back the fuck up. Back the fuck up. I'm back. Guys, go back to your cars. Go back to your cars. Go back to your cars, guys. Go. What do you want to see, a fucking show?
They're getting tired, and emotions are starting to cool. Scott has managed to pull them apart, more or less.
But as they're walking back to the truck, Joe Dogs, after he hits his inhaler, which I'm not knocking because sometimes I have to use one too, but he's like, I just smashed all of yous. I just smashed all 5 of yous by myself.
Come on, Bob. Go with your boys. Hey, remember that? Go with your boys. I just smashed all of you by myself. You did. All of you. Get the fuck out of here.
And I'm like, I'm pretty sure me and Scott are standing here. I'm pretty sure pretty sure Scott whipped more tails than you did.
Yes, There's another Scott at the fight. He's Scott Town, Scotty T. Actually, there are 3 Scotts in this case. There's Undercover Scott, Scotty T, and Chocolate Scott, who is also sometimes called Black Scott. For now, Scotty T. He was very important to the case, but also Undercover Scott's relationship with him was complicated.
If you ranked the 3 tightest relationships that I had during that 2 years with possible targets, Scott Town's number 1. We were tight, like scary tight. Like it was scary how similar we were. I mean, I could complete his sentences, he could complete mine. You know, was it love? I don't know. I had a lot more in common with Scott Town than I had with a lot of the FBI agents and task force officers I was working with, right? So who would I bond with better, you know? Some people sit there and go, look at these guys, grown men with tattoos. What are they, in their 30s, wearing Harley shirts and riding motorcycles? Who the hell does that? And I'm thinking, me and every damn friend I got, you know? I mean, is that bad? I didn't know, you know? But it gets tough. And I remember sitting there in his kitchen, and I'm thinking, well, man, he likes to drink. I like to drink. He likes to fight. I like to fight. He loves to lift weights. I love to lift weights. He looks out for me. I look out for him. You know, he's got a daughter. I got a daughter. And all this stuff's going through your head.
The bond between Scott and Scott, it didn't go unnoticed by the cover team.
Him and Town, they were thick as thieves. They were tight. Those guys hung out together. Town took him everywhere. You know what I mean? That was the guy. And he became, I think he cared about him. I really do.
You could tell that from listening to the tapes. They would sit in the car and talk late into the evening and really bond and share, stories. And, you can't really just fake that. It was clear to me on some level that Scott did like him, and that's what made the interactions so genuine and authentic that it worked.
But as a prosecutor, does that ever worry you?
It could. I haven't had that happen where I felt like a cooperator or an undercover was sort of crossing a line, but certainly that could happen.
At one point during the case, Scott got really painful shoulder surgery.
I get calls from the Outlaws. I get calls from Scott T. Hey, brother, how you doing? I just want to check on you, see how you doing. I'm doing good, man. He respected me, and I respected him. I trusted him. I mean, and I say that, I'm not saying that lightly.
Not everyone on Scott's case team was making the same type of calls to check in on his recovery. Scott says he doesn't really blame them. They just wanted him back on the job. But you can see how that would mess with your head, and that can be dangerous. But then Scott, Undercover Scott, had an episode at Scotty T's house that reminded him of the line.
And I remember looking up at his refrigerator. He had stickers and stuff all over it, like magnets and whatever. I'm not saying you got to be a believer, but there's a bracelet you always see Christians wearing, what would Jesus do? WWJD. And I remember looking up on his refrigerator and I saw WWSD, and I looked at it and it said, what would Satan do? And I went, oh yeah, I remember who I am. I'm good now.
Undercover work can be tedious. It's sometimes hours and days and weeks, and in this case, months, of building relationships and dropping breadcrumbs that you hope will amount to something. Scott eventually expanded his legend, that is, his undercover story, and hinted that he moved illegal goods. Small stuff at first, like power tools, and he made sure they saw him doing that. Then the Outlaws began asking him to sell their stolen property, insurance scams essentially. They would report a motorcycle or car stolen when really they'd offloaded it onto Scott. The Outlaws would collect the insurance payout while Scott pretends he's selling the vehicles in Mexico. Once that trust was there, Joe Dogs and his crew escalated it and started talking drugs.
there was a mystique about him because he wasn't around them all the time. He came across as a businessman, flying out here on business, trying to do a side hustle from Texas. So they bring it up. Well, you must know somebody in the cartels. You must know drug dealers, people that can move weapons or drugs over the line, the country, into the country and out of the country.
As the Outlaws' interest grows, all captured on tape, Peter Levitt and his team are building their prosecution. But it's all pretty small potatoes so far. Then there's an opportunity, a plan for a big sting. The Outlaws will provide the protection detail, which is basically the security, on a drug deal that Scott is supposedly in on. 40 kilos of cocaine and 1,000 pounds of weed need moving from Mexico to Canada. And that's real drugs, which the FBI doesn't want to lose on the streets of Massachusetts. The night before the deal, Scott gets a call.
Joe Dog says, hey, come on over to the clubhouse, but it was the night they had church. And I'm not allowed in church because I'm not a patch member.
Church is biker slang for closed-door, fully patched, members-only club meetings. No hangers-on, no probationary members. Scott is told to come back a little later, once the meeting is over, which is weird because Joe Dogs had summoned him. But he follows their instructions and kills some time at the bar with a drink.
I get to the clubhouse and I go inside and the music's blaring. They pour me a Jack and Coke, door shuts.
You're going to hear audio taken from the secretly recorded video from this night. At the start, everyone seems chummy, as usual.
I was cracking jokes like I normally do. What I didn't see is that when my head would turn away, their laughter would stop. And Clothesline, my boy at this point, says,
That's what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Hey, Tex, can I talk to you for a minute? And I said, yeah. Well, I'd been in that clubhouse, I don't know, 20 times, who knows. But there's one door I'd never been in, and this was the door. So he opens it, and they basically carry me down to a cellar. It's not a basement. I couldn't even stand up straight, and I could probably touch the wall on both sides. Well, Black Scott and Clothesline follow me down there. Listen, it's an oh shit moment. It's an adrenaline dump. If you've been in a car wreck or anything that's traumatic to you, this is what happens in an adrenaline dump. Time slows down. It could be 30 seconds, but it feels like an hour. And you get auditory exclusion. Everything you hear and starts sounding like you're underwater. It's going whoa, whoa, whoa. Everything you see is like clicks, like click, click, time dilation. You can feel your heart beating. You get a little sweaty. Your hamstrings get weak. So we going down in this little tight place, and I start realizing this is not good. My spidey senses were going off, or the Holy Spirit, or whatever you want to call it. And at this point, they've brandished their weapons. Black Scott's on the stairs, blocking me.
This is when Scott says,
Should I ask what's going on?
No, just precautions, that's all. All right, there's a lot of shit going on. It's my job to take care of all my brothers, all right?
No.
I need you to write down your name for me, your full name.
Yeah.
All right?
And he repeats it. Your full name, your date of birth, your address. He goes, I need you to take off all your clothes. Here's the problem. I was wired. And I was wired pretty heavily. It was hidden, right? More than one device hidden. But it wasn't like attached to my skin or shoved in crevices somewhere. But basically, I take my jacket off, I take my shirt off, take my boots off. I started to write my name, Scott Calloway, and because of the adrenaline dump, I forgot my middle name. And I'm like, dude, why are you, again, this feels like it's like 25 minutes, I don't know. But it's really seconds, maybe a minute. But I'm trying to remember my middle name and I can't remember it. And I'm just rushing through. I'm like a Rolodex in my brain. I'm like, okay, Scott so-and-so Calloway. Nope, that was the middle name of my first undercover alias I ever made. How about this one? Nope, that was somebody else. Nope, that was, and I'm going, what the? You can hear my voice has changed. I'm slightly higher, my throat's tighter, and I said,
And what else do you need? Name?
Yeah.
And what else? To write down.
and then I hear them yell up to the probate, Hey, ask probate what else he needs for that website.
This is 2006, and believe it or not, one of the probationary members of the Outlaws is upstairs checking an online directory of snitches called who'sarat.com to see if Scott's name comes up. Scott's doing his best to buy himself some time, and finally, he remembers his fake middle name. As he carefully writes it down, he's trying to read the body language of Clothesline, the chapter's enforcer.
And the whole time, though, I'm trying to figure out, how bad is this? You're supposed to be my boy. I know your baseline. I know you when you're upset. I know you when you're calm. I know you when you're sad. And he starts going through my clothing. And you can hear me kind of give I don't know how to do it, but you can hear me go.
You may be wondering right now, doesn't Scott have a cover team? Where is Higgy?
So we were sitting out front. We're obviously in the surveillance. And we're sitting there, we're listening to the conversation. The next thing we know, we hear him going downstairs. And then you could hear Clothesline's tone of voice. And he starts swearing at him. I want your fucking name, your social security number, and all this shit. And he starts on him. And that's when I said, we got a problem.
Higgy already had a bad feeling that something was going to go down. Earlier that night, the team was notified that Scott's vehicle, the rental he'd been driving while undercover, well, someone tried to run the plates.
One of the Outlaws owned a tow company. Where they do police tows, they have the ability to have police officers run the plates of cars they tow, looking for information.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like, you'd never think of that, but they knew it. So we made a decision. If we thought he was being assaulted, we were going to just hit the building with a car, and that would be it. And then we'd call, obviously. We'd call for help and then hit the thing. That's what we'd have to do. We had no other options, I didn't think. I think if you're in the clubhouse, it was a little building, that would get your attention. It was scary. Not for me, but for Scott. So here we are, we're going to lose him, you know?
This series was written and produced by me, Michelle Shephard, senior producer Ashley Mack, and our producer Eunice Kim. Mixing and sound design by Evan Kelly. Emily Cannell is our digital producer. Our intern was Rachel DeGasperis. Special thanks to Andrew Friesen, the CBC Reference Library, and Oralation Studios. Additional audio provided by Fox, the Associated Press, and ABC. Chris Oak and Cecil Fernandez are our executive producers. Tanya Springer is the senior manager, and Arif Noorani is the director of CBC Podcasts. This series was produced alongside a book I wrote with Scott, codename Pale Horse, How I Went Undercover to Expose America's Nazis. You can catch up with Season 1 of White Hot Hate wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're enjoying this series and want to help new listeners discover the show, please take some time to give us a rating and review on whichever is your chosen app. It really helps.